Fernanda.
Hello. How are we?
I don't know if you've noticed, I have a different background once again
Oh yeah.
because I finally have a desk.
Nice. I bet that feels amazing. I have worked without desks in my life as well, and it's not great.
No, it's not. It really feels amazing, yes.
Yay,
And
finally then.
right next to it, I have this object which you might find interesting.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But it's
Oh,
not
that's
a
amazing.
real one. It's supposed to be
Uh-huh.
like the real one, supposedly you could move the signs and the houses to accommodate to the actual time and moment and everything, right? It's still like a fake one.
Yeah.
It's more like a
Yeah, like a thing to look at rather than a
Yeah, so for people who are listening and not watching the YouTube video, actually, I'm just showing what's the name of this, actually? We should know.
Oh, sure. This isn't an astrolabe, is it? Or is?
Not an astrolabe, no, I don't think
No,
so.
astrolabe is like a small thing.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
okay, it's like a kind of celestial sphere, if you want to, with the houses and the signs around the earth. And I have this object at home, but it's a fake one, so I'm just showing off a little bit. How are you,
It's really
Fernanda?
cool. Yeah, I'm good. I got myself a new tattoo yesterday for Christmas. So yeah, look. Uh,
Ah,
so-
wow.
yeah.
It's I cannot see very well what it is. It's a
I,
man and he's holding a little kid on top.
yeah. It's like yeah, it's a
It's
person.
very nice.
It's basically a tattoo artist I actually really like following on Instagram, and she does like she reads like pictures. So that's basically a photo from my childhood.
Ah,
Um
wow.
Yeah, so that's like my nan, basically. It's my grandma holding me. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm really happy I got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is really nice.
So
Yes.
that's my Christmas present for myself. And it's interesting because I got this tattoo. Moon was conjoined Saturn in Aquarius. So 21 Aquarius, I think that was a conjunction yesterday of Moon and Saturn. And I didn't plan that. It just sort of like happened because she's very busy and she happened to have a space on her schedule, and so I booked.
Mm.
And then there was that conjunction, and my grandma had a stellium in Aquarius.
Ah, wow, very nice. Yes.
Yeah, so she had Sun, Moon, Mars, Uranus. She had quite a few planets in Aquarius, and yeah, she my fourth house in Aquarius as well, and she always felt like home, like an island of peace and quiet, and sort of a refuge in
Yeah,
my
it's so
life.
nice. Yes.
Yeah, and I happen to get this tattoo with Saturn Moon conjunction Aquarius. You see, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, like, oh, Saturn Moon conjunction, hard and, you know, being lonely and all the things that we can also attribute to Moon Saturn, but actually it was like making something real that has a very Aquarian personal um flavor to me, but like a kind of a happy thing, really.
Yeah, it was like giving shape to your memories. So giving
Exactly.
shape Saturn to your memories moon.
Yeah. And my grandma, happened to be very Aquarian as well. So that was even like, it's so interesting, isn't it, how astrology works? I mean,
It's
uh,
interesting that your grandma was Aquarius and you have so many Aquarius in your fourth house because there's kind of lineage, in the fourth house, like your family tree and stuff. And if you have so much Aquarius there and your grandma has a lot of Aquarius, it's like, I mean, I think that's very interesting.
yeah. And like she always felt like home. You know how some people, when they have planets in your fourth house, you do feel like you know them or you've known them from before, or, this sort
Yes.
of when there is an inter aspect there with fourth house is a great aspect of feeling at home with somebody, like literally. And so I do have many Aquarian friends, I think, for that reason.
That's why your internet goes off.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Very Aquarian Uranian moment.
Because we
Yeah,
were about to we were about to record and suddenly Fernanda's internet went off out of the blue. It doesn't usually happen.
yeah, it was
Um,
strange. It was. That's the theme, isn't it? That's the theme of the day, because I got this tattoo, and then my Aquarian aunt, which is the daughter of my grandma as well. She was quite like emotional, and for an Aquarius that was quite unusual as well. She was like, "Oh my God, I can feel like crying."
Yeah, but
So that.
I had this friend who has a grand trine on air, in
Mhm.
air, and she gets so when she gets a little bit of feeling, she starts crying non-stop, but she has no planets in water.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think it's like, she's so rational that when a little bit, a glimpse of emotions or feelings show up, they get over. She doesn't know how
Wow.
to channel it.
Does she have planets in the water houses at all, or not even that?
I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
remember.
I
I
think.
remember
Yeah.
talking with her, no, not having any planets in water.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that's commonly asked, isn't it? Is like I think one of the common questions is like I have an empty house. Like, does that mean like oh my second house is empty? Does that mean I'm not gonna make money? Or also I don't have plans in a specific element. Like, am I really bad at expressing that element? And you know me and people that are listening. If you've been listening for a while, I really don't like to think about things in the good and bad binary, like the yes, no ways. I came up with this idea. I don't know if I really came up or if I was influenced by something and I don't remember, but I did came up with this idea of using astrology like as constructive astrology. Finding constructive ways of interpreting astrology rather than just putting like a label that, oh, you haven't got this, so you're going to be really bad at doing that.
Yeah,
But yeah.
also, sorry, yes.
No, I was done. Yeah, what were you gonna say?
I mean, to take just one, there's also this tendency, I think it's when we're first studying because we want to learn. So there's this tendency of trying to come up with rules that we can apply. So we can be certain that we're doing the right job, right? So it's like, yeah, if the person doesn't have any water, then they don't know how to control their emotions. And it's like,
Mm,
that's it. That's the rule. So no matter which chart, no matter whatever you see in the chart, if there's no water, they can't control the emotions. No matter which chart it is, if it's a Capricorn, they're doing this. If it's a Sagittarius, they're doing this. Like, no matter what. I think that's a little bit tricky. We need to always kind of look at the whole, we cannot just come up with conclusions from one thing. And then also, I
yeah.
was thinking when you were saying this, I was thinking, I was reading this, I'm reading this book, I'm rereading this book, which is actually a book I would recommend, but I think it's only in Spanish for anyone who's an astrologer because it's about short therapies. So the idea is how to make sure therapy short, like
Mm,
I'm becoming a Jungian analyst, and I studied the psychoanalysis before and these kind of things. And the idea behind it is that it's going to be long. You're going to have to be there for at least 2 or 3 years to start the work.
mm-hmm.
And instead, I'm reading this. I don't want to be only have one approach, so I'm reading this other book, which is the idea that therapy should be as short as you can. Like you should make it as so. It's like techniques to make it very short. And I'm actually reading it because of the astrological consultations, because I was like, okay, I want to learn things that I can do, because most people that come to a consultation, they come for only 1 or 2 sessions. Maybe they come back in a few months or in a year. So it's like you,
Yeah.
you won't be able to meet them every week for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And why am I saying all of this? Because you were saying about deconstructing. And one of the things that we're saying is that some people use, when they have to do short therapy, they use like these tests to test, like these psychological tests that they have been tested, they are scientifically approved, let's say, to measure depression, to measure anxiety, and all of these things. And they were saying it's a bit dangerous. Like it could be, you feel like you're getting a lot of information, but if you're suddenly giving somebody, asking them to do a test to measure their depression, you are creating it. When you name something, you create it. And I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of that also in, like what you were saying, all with the Moon Saturn thing. We
Mm-hmm.
name the solitude, so we create this interpretation also. So it's
Yeah. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? I was thinking about that as well a lot. Um Talking about that with my partner as well recently, because Christmas and holidays are usually a very triggering time for people. And even if you do love your family, and even if you have a big family, like nice family, people usually argue, and there are lots of like memes, like people posting saying, right, my aunt and my cousin, they already started like Christmas, and it's a time that's commonly triggering of our traumas and our and our our childhood memories and etc. And we were just talking about how there is a sense of self-fulfilling prophecy as well in some of the situations that we have in our lives, because we have an eye already interpreting things in a certain way. and
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I don't want to get into like why I was saying that and who or what, but like not in a new age way, because there's this sort of new age speech of like, oh, you create your reality and you're,
Mm.
um obviously I'm a Virgo with loads of Virgo. I like things that are a little bit more um scientific, let's say. I
Mm-hmm.
do, like to think in a more psychological term of the self-fulfilling prophecy, rather than you attract, your reality from the new age sense. But yes, if you do, you know, if you're already thinking that you're going to be rejected, and you send a message to a person, like if they take like 10 minutes, that's like a confirmation of your
Yeah.
expectation that you're going to be rejected, and then your reaction to that is what's actually creating that situation. It's not
Yes.
like
And
yeah, it's
even
not like
maybe
magical thing. Yeah,
you choose a moment to send a message in which the most probable thing is that they're going to take time to answer. So then you unconsciously choose situations that will prove your bias.
yeah, I
It's
really feel
terrible.
there's a lot of that. Yeah, there is a lot of that.
Yes.
So I mean, I don't know how that fits into the short therapy, I guess, with the whole diagnosis thing, but it's true. Like, whenever we have a diagnosis of something and we say this is that thing, then we kind of accommodate how we
Yeah,
act.
but it's
How
tricky
we
because
react.
I mean,
Yeah,
on one sense, it could be a little bit creating a reality. Like when they tell you you're a Taurus, you're a Virgo, you're going like you said, I'm a Virgo, so I'm rational and I need the scientific approach, right? So in one sense, it's like okay, maybe it's limiting your perception of what you can be, but then on
mhm,
some other senses, it might actually, I find a lot in the astrological consultation that people feel they find some kind of comfort, some kind of relief in understanding that they're not they're not wrong. They're not. There's nothing wrong with them. They are
mm,
just maybe Cancer with I don't know Aquarius rising. So it's like a so it's like it's not like they're going crazy. It's like they have a they have very intense tension within them because they're very different energies. I'm just putting an example. It could be
mm,
Virgo with Pisces. Like combinations that are very very opposing. So it's like sometimes when we name these energies, when we describe them, at the same, it's like the diagnosis, like you're saying the diagnosis, like we do the astrological diagnosis. Um, Sometimes I think it can also be relieving. I think a lot of people find that in the consultation that they feel
yeah,
finally I'm allowed to be crazy. I'm allowed to have this kind of dual nature, sometimes more than dual, actually.
yeah. It's like feeling seen, isn't it? You feel
Yeah.
seen, you feel understood as well. But I'm very interested in what you're saying as well about short therapy. I do see a Jungian analyst, and I've been seeing a Jungian analyst since 2014. So it's been like almost 10 years. I did have a couple of years break though in between, which I said to him I needed to just
Oh,
be,
but you're
not
disciplined.
think about.
You're wow. I
Yeah,
couldn't do it
but,
for that long, I think.
yeah, but like I have to say that I really love it. I I feel like I have a pal to do the whole like inner life thing. And
Yes.
again, I do think, again, without wanting to diagnose anything, put anything in the box, but I do think it's got to do with the high sensitivity as well. Because I think one of the characteristics they say, because there's a tendency to process things so deeply, is that you have this really intense inner life as well. So you always have something to think, to analyze, and to go deeper into. And there's this
Mm.
constant in my life of like being very philosophical and analytical of what's happening in my life. So I do love, and again, like without wanting to put it in a box, but having like a Scorpio rising and all, it's like I want to go deep. Like I don't want, I don't want to be fixed. I don't want to like. I mean, in some situations, maybe I will need that and it'll be okay as well. Like, I'm not criticizing, you know? I think behavior therapy and all of that, I think it has its place as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I usually do like to go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I do love that idea of Jungian therapy being a lifetime, because you're constantly trying to align yourself with your unconscious, and that doesn't happen, you know, one day. It's like, all right, I'm done. I feel like it's like showering, you know. We don't shower today and say, okay, I've had a shower, I'm done. I don't need to shower ever again. Like, yes, you had a shower, now you're feeling great, but tomorrow, or you know, you're gonna have a shower again. You know, it's like a natural work that we have. It's like working out as well. We don't go to the gym and work out and say, right, now I'm fit, I don't need to do it again. You know, you have to kind of.
Yeah, and I mean, like in astrology, we see it in the transits. You cannot be like in the transits and the progressions and everything, right? You cannot be your whole chart all the time, every day, at every moment. Like there are some moments in time where certain parts of your chart they stand out because they're
Mhm.
activated by transits or progression or something, and you need to do some work. And even though it's your chart and you've known it forever, if you're an astrologer, not forever, but since you studied astrology at least, and so even though you know your chart, you find new things, right? When you have these transits or these progressions to your own planetary position. So it's like I think it's Krishnamurti who says like. The self is never the same. You know, you're constantly renewing who you are. And I think
Yeah,
that's the point in Jungian therapy. In
yeah,
short therapy, I think the idea is more like it's not so much to create this dialogue with the unconscious. I think the idea of Jungian therapy is to create a dialogue with the unconscious, to give room for, because for Jung, you know, it's different than to Freud. From Jung, the unconscious has a creative power, it has a very vitalizing power.
hmm
So the idea is to give him room, give him, eat, her, they, whatever how you pronoun you want to put on the unconscious. I don't know, but I think like short therapy is more like I can't stop drinking and I need to do something now because if I keep drinking next week they're gonna fire me from my work. So it's like we
yeah,
don't have time. I mean, then you should do probably the Jungian therapy and see from where this is emerging. But maybe
hmm
first you need to, like you were saying, behavioral therapy has a place in the world.
yeah, absolutely. I used to be more critical of it when I was younger. I think, yeah, it definitely has its place. Like, I've had some very interesting conversations with psychologists that do behavior therapy, and I was like, yeah, obviously, yes. Like, I never thought of it in this way. And also, like, diving deep, but it's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay as well.
That's
Like,
another thing, yes. I mean, it
yeah,
happens also in the consultations. Like you see some people come to the consultations and they tell you like, I want to go deep. I want to discover my inner self. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about my challenge. You know, some people come and when you start saying about their gifts or their possible talents, they go like, no, but tell me what I need to get better at. You know, like some people are like very, and then
yeah.
some others are more like, no, I just want to find my mission in life. And it, you know, everybody is looking for something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people want something very practical as well. Like, I'm gonna publish a book. Can you like
Yes.
help me like find a date for that? And when is the best time for me to get married? And blah blah blah. And you're like, okay, a practical approach, which is fine as well. It's yeah, it's interesting. And I love that you're thinking about the short-term therapy because of consultations being like usually a one-off. Like, you know, someone coming to see you once and then you're not seeing that person for a very long time.
Yeah,
So how
because
would that work in practice? Like, you know, applying the short therapy in an astrological constellation, do you think?
well, like in the book, let me look for the book. The book makes a lot of emphasis on the book makes a lot of emphasis on the interventions that you make, and I mean, first of all, the whole approach is very different from psychoanalysis and this all of these dynamic approaches because there's not so much the idea of resistance. There's not so much the idea of the patient
Mm-hmm,
being the enemy, which
mm-hmm,
I think it's a misinterpretation of psychoanalysis and these kinds of things.
mm-hmm.
Maybe psychoanalysis is a little more is closer to that idea, but Jungian, I don't think they see it that way. But so the idea is like first of all, we very pay a lot of attention to what the client is telling you that it works for them. You know, like maybe they want to work with a square, you want to work with a difficult, challenging aspect they have, and you
Mhm.
want to come up with solutions. So, like from the show therapy approach, we would say ask them what did they do when they were having a similar transit or something like that, and if it
Mhm.
worked or not, and why do they think it worked or not, and be very
Mhm.
cautious, to follow like their, like in show therapy they say your best ally is the client because they
Mhm.
know what worked for them before.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes.
if they come, and they did another astrological consultation, ask them about it. How did you feel about it? Did you like it? Why didn't you like it? What did you like about it? Because they're telling you like what they, in that way they're telling you what they're expecting of you. So like how to navigate that. And the reason why you want to know that is because you want to be useful for them. You don't want to have a consultation that you think it's going to be useful. You want to be it's like it. I think some people could criticize like, you're just letting them tell you what you're supposed to do, and you're not telling them what you want to tell them. And it's like, well, you are prioritizing, yes, what
Prioritizing.
what they think is useful for them. So it's like it's a very like respecting their will, their desires.
Mm. Yeah, it's more person centered, isn't it?
I
It's
think
like
so, yeah.
it's rather than you telling. I mean, I've had consultations where, especially like in the early years, where I would be like really under pressure to prove that I knew something and that,
Yeah.
astrology works. And I'd
Yes.
go like like a whole like session almost. And like towards the end be like, right, do you have any questions? And then the person be like, actually, I just wanted to talk about this. And spend the whole
Exactly.
time like saying
Exactly.
like you had no interest whatsoever.
I had once. Did I say this the other day? No, I talked about this in a class the other day because they were doing an interpretation. The students were doing an interpretation about some. No, I don't remember what it was. It was a beautiful interpretation, but it was very, very abstract. It was like beautiful but very, very abstract.
Yeah.
And so I told them this one time where I had this woman. She had like everything in Sagittarius, it was like Sagittarius with Sagittarius with Sagittarius. So I kept talking about like the quest for meaning and the sense of expansion and the purpose of life. And at some point she stopped me, like brutally stopped me. Okay, Alejo, will I ever be disciplined or not? Like, this is all she wanted to know. Like, yeah, it's all very nice. It's all very nice. I just want to know, will I ever be able to follow a discipline or not? Will I ever be able to follow my plans or not?
Yeah,
This is all I
see?
want to know.
Yeah, exactly. See, this is really important. So there's like it's a tightrope, it's a balance between listening to the client, asking the client, being there for the client, and being guided by what the client's saying, and providing your service, providing your knowledge somehow, your expertise, but you have to tailor it to that person's need.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
you know? And there are consultations where the person do a lot of talking and they need to do the talking, and
Yes.
and it's okay as well. There's no like you're not being a cheat, like taking people's money as a charlatan. That's what they need in that moment. And there's a real
Because
power in astrology, isn't it? It's like it's definitely kind of a therapy with the two people there, like engaging in a different way than it would, in a regular waking life. Like I don't know. Yeah.
yeah, because I think it's so important for the client to process what you're saying. So you might interpret an aspect or something in the chart, but it's very important for them to share how they feel. This is my opinion. This is the way I see it, at least. It's very important for them to share how they feel about that aspect and how they feel it has been manifested in their lives, because that's how they integrate information. This is how they integrate. Otherwise, it's just information. It's just, well, this is my, because I'm more like an experience. I'm more like body centered and experiential centered. Like, I think we over we try to overemphasize the mind and reason and logic, and more I feel like we need to approach it in different ways, right? And I think that if you just tell them the information of interpretation, they need to process it. And I think the way to process it is to let them speak, to let them to give you feedback. And also, like you were saying, not to be afraid. Sometimes it happens. You do an interpretation and they tell you, no, I don't feel that. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, don't be afraid. It's like maybe
Yeah.
you're not. You know, the other day I had a consultation. She was a Mars in Capricorn, conjunct the IC. So I was talking about this possibility of achievements, and she was like very inspired by everything I was saying. But when I finished, she said, "You know, I feel very inspired. It touches me in many ways, and I feel like there is something of me like that. But my feeling is I have never achieved anything." And then I realized that I was not phrasing it properly, because Mars in Capricorn is not so much about the achievements. It's more about the will and the possibility, you know, to keep fighting because you have a goal. But it's not Saturn in Capricorn. It's not more like you're gonna get. It doesn't promise that you're gonna get there. What Mars in Capricorn is promises is that you have the energy and the drive to keep fighting, right? So I realized that, so I rephrased it, and she was like, "Yeah, that actually I feel more identified with that than with the idea." So I think it's like sometimes it's so important to see how they experience it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's at the core of astrology, of anything astrological that we do, is that it is multivalent. No matter how much you look at a chart and you're like, right, I got it. That's, and then you go see the client and you're like, okay, no, I actually didn't. Like, I didn't expect that. Like, I didn't expect that wild card or that life story, you know? It's like, oh, okay, hold on a minute. Were you like, you know, living in the streets by yourself for a few years? Oh, I didn't count on that. Hold on a minute, let me rephrase it. Let me, you know, have you gone through? I mean, I am very spontaneous and I love spontaneity. So I don't mind, you know, I'm very good at like putting a talk together and having charts like bombarded at me in the moment. Like I don't really need a lot of time preparing anyways. But have you had situations where you do a whole preparation and then the person's birth time is wrong and they're like, oh no, hold on a minute. Actually, I don't know why you got 10
Yes.
a.m. there. It was like 10 p.m. Okay.
It happened. One of the things that happened to me is that I have some clients from the USA, and they put the month and the day the other way around.
Yeah.
So now I've changed my webpage, and I can make a whole pop-up coming up like, please pay attention how you put
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was there before, but it wasn't very clear. So anyway, so it happened to me that I got the wrong chart because of that. And then sometimes because of sometimes also because of the day of the time. I mean, yes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
terrible.
And then what do you do? Do you just go like, oh, okay, hold on a minute, let me just cap the right chart here.
So it depends. In my case, it depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go like that, and don't worry, I just cast it and give me just 2 minutes, and I'll cast a new chart. Sometimes I tell them that I need to reschedule, because also it depends. If it's usually I do 2 consultations. So the first one is more like natal chart, and the second one is more like transits and progressions. But some people, they already know the natal chart, so they just want to go to the transits and progressions. So if I have to do the solar return, the transits, the progressions, and you know, you need to prepare that for sure. I mean, at least I need to prepare that to check exactly where are the progress planets, what are the direct planets. I need, I mean, I cannot do it in 2 minutes. So if that's consultation, it's that consultation, then in that case, I always reschedule. If it's just the natal chart, it depends. It depends how much it changes.
Yeah, it depends on the moment as well, isn't it?
And also it depends on the person, because sometimes they are like, I don't want to wait. You know, they're like just.
Yeah.
But I think what's interesting also, it's how this is manifesting sometimes the chart itself. Because this has happened to me with people who have a lot of Neptune, who have a lot of Pisces. And the cases I remember where they were like, it's okay, yeah, let's just do it. Let's just do a new one, a new chart now. They had a lot of Mars or Aries. So it was like, let's do it now. I don't care. You know, it's like, because I remember like, I remember in the middle of the consultation, because I don't realize at the spot. You know, at the moment, I'm just more focused on fixing the problem. So I don't do that interpretation at the spot. But then in the middle of the consultation, I remember one that happened a few weeks ago. In the middle of the consultation, we were talking about this need for impulsivity and like being authentic and impulsive and being spontaneous. Like, yeah. And we were talking about that, and I said, this is exactly what just happened. You know, it's like, yeah, this is just what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an onion, isn't it? Like and all of these different layers, and it's like it's happening on the spot, basically what you're talking about. Yeah,
It's incredible. That's incredible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had that happening to me, but usually it wasn't a huge change. Like, um, yeah.
I
I
mean, if
think I
it's,
usually ask people to write me the month, so I don't think I've had, the American like
yes.
switched around. I've had times like different, but I think in a moment I usually like I'm just like right. I
I
got it
mean,
roulette. Recast it, and I'm like, okay, give me a second, and then I'm looking at it again.
you love it. All of your four house in Aquarius is like, yes, baby, this is
Yeah,
nurturing for me.
exactly. It's like it's
Yeah.
my Mercury Uranus as well. It's like right, you got to be really fast now. Look again. It's like
You love it. You're like, yes. Actually, I
I,
did it on purpose.
yeah, I have to enjoy it. Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
if it's like you're saying, if it's a few hours, most of the planets don't change. So it's
Mm,
like it's okay. The thing is when, when it's like 5 months apart, 6 months apart, it's like you
yeah,
look at the new chart and it's like, oh my god, it's a whole new chart.
it's a whole new chart. Like it's very different. Yeah, yeah.
And also, do
But
you look at the synastry between their chart and your chart?
I just look it naturally, like, because I know my chart by heart. Like, so
Yeah.
every time I see someone's chart, I do naturally straight away, I see like interconnections with my chart. I don't need to really put them together. So I don't actively do a synastry in that way. Like, I don't create a
No, no, yeah,
synastry.
you don't do a, like an analysis, but
But
you.
I do like I do see it straight away, like, oh nice, like, or even like with their progressions, because like it's so common people come to see you and they're progressed, moon is in your sun, or they're progressed,
Mm.
the progressed ascendant is on your something, or the progressed something is on your ascendant, and you have that connection. And I love it because I always think, wow, it's right, I'm the right person for this
Yes.
person, because they are gonna feel connected with me, at this time, like at this moment, they're gonna feel a connection. But yeah, but there is also like, inter aspects that you also realize it might potentially be challenging, or I don't know,
Yes.
like I don't go with that vision though, like, oh, and I'm going in the consultation already like expecting the worst. But I've had a client once as well, but this is a very long time ago. And that client had quite a few planets on my Chiron or something.
Mm.
And it was like very early days when I didn't, like, I was too scared of asking the client what they wanted and like really listening to them, and and yeah, she wanted a constellation that was a lot more like fortune telling. It was more like, can you just tell me what's gonna happen, like, can you just tell me, like. And I was
Mm.
like, I don't really work, in this way. So every time I tried to do an interpretation, I was more like psychological, based on psychological astrology and stuff. She was a bit like, meh. So it really kind of, and
Wow. Yeah,
I've got
interesting.
Chiron Gemini. So it was a whole communication like wound that was like triggered. And I was like, and I
Interesting.
felt really awful after as well. And but those like were really really early days, like many years ago, and I've learned a lot from it. It was a very enlightening experience on like the importance of asking the client what they want, and making sure before you book a session that what they're looking for is what you can offer to them,
Yeah.
because I didn't think about that at that time. um yeah, so it was very painful as a as a
Mm.
kind of like as a chironic experience would be, I think. Yeah. But I don't go with preconceived ideas. I don't look at someone having a stealing on my chiron now and be like, oh, it's gonna be painful. Like I'm just curious to see how that's gonna play out. What about you? Do you
Yeah.
do these like before?
No, it's the same thing that like you, because you know your chart, so you look at their charts and you see some connections. I find a lot of connections between my moon usually,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the sun, but the mostly between something with my moon or my rising sign, my ascendant degree.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly my moon, my ascendant degree, and then sometimes with Saturn and the sun. But the ones I find the most is the moon and the ascendant. I'm surprised how much that shows up.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I go more in with the, like what you were saying, like an attitude of curiosity. Like, how is this going to be played out? What is it that they might be projecting onto me, that they're picking up my moon or my ascendant or my. And then it's interesting how like, how it plays out in the consultation is actually very interesting. How like at some point at of course I wouldn't say this happens to me all the time, because of course you're doing so many things in the consultation. Your body, your feelings is like occupied with so many things that I wouldn't say it happens all the time, but sometimes it happens in the consultation that I suddenly see like the two charts interacting, not the two charts themselves, but like this synastry. So I suddenly see, okay, this is why she came to me, because she or he, this person needs an Aquarius rising to discuss this thing, because they're so fearful of change and they're so
Mm-hmm.
fearful of uncertainty, and it's like this is why they're here in this room with me, because I've lived with the idea of change and uncertainty for nothing
Mm-hmm.
I've ever planned has come out the way I planned it. So it's like, so I think it's interesting when that happens, when you see like a part of their chart having a dialogue with another part of your chart,
Mm-hmm.
and and you can see it. I think it's amazing, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's really magical, like the how many facets there is. I think Frank Clifford used to say, you get the clients you deserve as well, which I
Yeah.
always thought was interesting, because he said that all the clients that come after you as well, they have a connection with your chart in one way or another. Even if we don't have, specific synastry or something, but he always said that in a funny way as well, when people complain about the clients that they attract, or you get the clients you deserve.
I agree. Is there something that you see in the charts that you say like, oh no?
um oh, I think I'm always a little bit, there isn't really anything I look at and I'm like, oh no, like I can't do this. But there are certain things um that I find more easygoing. There are charts that look more easygoing than others. And I find, there's this sort of like, what is the feeling? What is the words that I'm trying to say? There is I go in a consultation more like I am serious about my work and I take my work very seriously, but I go a little bit more serious. Like I prepare myself when there is a lot of Pluto in the chart. Yeah.
Hmm.
Someone that has a very Plutonic nature, they're usually more demanding. And it depends on their level, obviously, of like personal, self-awareness, personal work. They can be the Plutonic person that's done a lot of personal work, has gone inwards, and they're gonna be like really they're gonna be great to work with, because they really gonna resonate with things and they're gonna be able to go even deeper of what you're saying. And I love that. Um, but if they haven't done a great deal of self-work, um, that tends to be more control, like
Yes,
in a controlling tendency
it's
that I
true.
find, like
Yes.
I need to be really like present. Whereas if
Yes.
someone that's very Neptunian and hasn't done a lot of self-control, or a personal work, they're going to tend to be a bit more scattered and
Yes.
escapist and distracted, and there's going to be like things there. But I find that with the Pluto, when there's not a lot of self-work with Pluto, it tends to be a bit requires more self-awareness in you as a practitioner as well than any other, than any
Yeah.
other a heavily Uranian chart or a heavily Neptunian chart. I think is more easygoing than a heavily Plutonic chart without personal work. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. What about you?
I had never thought about the Pluto thing, but I think you're right. I think it is true that when charts have a lot of Pluto or a lot of a Scorpio, I would say, they are more controlling and sometimes they don't open up so much. Like they're testing you first and then they see if they can open up. But I've
Yeah.
never felt it like I've never. I mean, I felt it during the consultations, but I never reflected that much on it like you have actually. But for me, it's when they have a lot of Pisces. When
Right.
they have a lot of Pisces, I know I'm like now I have learned how to do it, but at first I was like I didn't know how to express it. Or a lot of planets in the 12th house, and I get a lot of charts with a lot of Pisces. It's like because that's why I ask you because you said like Frank says you get the clients that you deserve. And
Yeah.
sometimes when I see the charts, I say, "Oh, Pisces, like, oh, 12th house again. How am I gonna do this again?" And now I'm like an expert in explaining that because it happened to me so much. I trained myself so much in being able to put this so subtle world into words is really unworthy and like
Yeah.
of known
Probably.
words. I mean, like this world that has no words, how to put it into words.
Yeah.
So now I can do it, but it's always a bit like, okay, there we go. Let's go jump into the sea. Let's get the
Yeah.
scuba diving suit because now we're going.
Mm. I mean, for me, like the heavily, like 12 houses, especially the heavy 12 house clients, I think is always an element of solitude that they need in their lives. And, that sort of makes the 12th house a bit more tangible.
Mm.
For me, it's like this sort of like need to have this connection with themselves and to be alone and, and to have that sense of solitude as we do, like as we have showers, like we were saying, we need to have this constant. I think they need constant solitude as well. Like come out and see people and socialize or whatever they do work, but always make sure that there's a quality time alone. I think this is one of the things that they all connect with. I mean, I don't think I've had someone with a heavy 12 house that said, nah, actually, I really don't need it. Like, because for me, that I mean, I'm not saying that to explain it to you. I'm sure you got it as well. But just saying like what my perspective always was is that
Yes,
like
yes.
self-house has no boundaries. It's like they constantly feeling what people feel, picking up on people's thoughts, picking up on the crowd's general feeling, and it's really confusing. So the solitude can be a real like antidote to getting a better sense of what you want, who you are,
Yeah,
what what your thoughts are, and have discrimination there. But
yeah.
a controlling Plutonic, client can be like very challenging in the sense of what you're saying. They're gonna be very quiet. They're gonna be very, you know, um, and test you and even sometimes like the consultation can be really great, but they're not gonna say anything in the
They're
moment.
not gonna say anything. You're gonna find out later. It's
Yeah,
interesting. It did happen
yeah,
to me with that thing. Like I finished sometimes some consultations and I was like, this wasn't really good. And then
yeah,
maybe a month and a half, you suddenly get a message saying, "I thank you so much. You made me reflect so many things after your consultation. I realized about this and that." And I was like, "Oh wow! I thought I was
yeah,
facing a stone of ice, but actually,
yeah.
yeah.
It's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Mm. All right.
Time flies. I think we've been chatting for 40,
Yeah.
more than 40 minutes for sure. Yes.
Yeah, we're coming to an end of episode number 2.
Yes, very nice. All right. Thanks everyone for being with us. If there's anything that you would like us to discuss or address, let us know.
Or a story of your own as well. Like, have you had what is the kind of client that you find difficult to work with or
Yes.
challenging, that you find challenging, or, anything else that we talked about that you have a story as well?
Yes. Great.
What's our email? Should we say our email? As
Do you
what
remember our email?
Yeah, I'm sure I remember. I can quickly open here because I always confuse the order of it. So if you have anything to say, let me open quickly here.
I just want to say while you look for that, the book I'm reading about short therapy, brief therapy, is by Paul Watzlawick, Watzlawick, Paul Watzlawick, and it's called Brief Therapy.
Nice. I'm gonna have
It's
a look.
actually called. It's actually no. Sorry, I'm making a mistake. It's not that one. It's by Mark. Oh my God, sorry. It's by Mark Beyebach. I thought it was a different name. It's by Mark Beyebach. Beyebach, and it's called 24 Ideas for a Brief Psychotherapy. 24 Ideas for Brief Psychotherapy. But this is the Spanish edition. I don't know in English what it must have been called, but just look for the author. Yes.
That's really good. That's very interesting. I want to have a look at it and get some ideas as well. It sounds like how to go deeper in a, you know, in a briefer space of time, isn't it? It's
really good. It teaches you like what kind of questions to ask, like, you know, because basically what you need to do is to plant seeds for them to reflect when they get home. So it's like,
yeah, that sounds really good. And our email I just found here, everyone, is astrologyfortheoutcast@gmail.com. So astrologyfortheoutcast@gmail.com. If you have any ideas, comments, stories, questions as well, funny stories, please. We love a good funny story. We're not going to reveal your name or anything, unless you want to, and in which case we will reveal your name. But otherwise, I think that's it. We'll meet again next week with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and talk about all things astrology related and life stories and things. Yeah.
all right.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
Oh, yeah. See you next year.
Yeah. Bye-bye.